Here we go.
This is the Skip Bayless Show, episode 10. This is the Undisputed. This is everything I can't share with you while I'm doing a 2.5-hour live TV debate show with and against Shannon Sharpe 5 days a week. In this episode 10, I'm about to unleash on my Dallas Cowboys, on Tom Brady's return, on LeBron James, and on my love-hate affair that I've had for too many years with March Madness. But as always, we begin with not to be skipped. Last week, as I sat right here in this same chair on this same set, you may or may not know that I did the entire show on how for the last 15 years, Charles Barkley has said many times on many different TV shows that he'd like to kill me simply because of what I say on TV about LeBron James or Aaron Rodgers or whatever sports issue of the day we might be debating. Again, unfortunately, I've never met Charles Barkley. He never crossed my path, nor I his path, while I was covering sports as a newspaper reporter / columnist. I don't know of any instance in which I've criticized him and somehow made him mad. There's no backstory here. There's no untold story of some personal beef I've had with Charles Barkley. There is none of the above. I'm pretty sure Charles wants to kill me only because of what I say on TV about other sports stars, not about Charles Barkley. But as I strongly made the point, I honestly, from my heart, I don't care what Charles says about me. I do. I like watching him on TV. As I said last week, he can be a little clownish on occasion. I'm not sure exactly how much of a real feel he has for the sport of basketball, the NBA, or just people in general. But I say it again, I've never lost any sleep over Charles saying, for instance, once about me, that if he got a terminal disease, he would like to kill me on live TV and leave nothing but my DNA sample. Fine. But my wife has not been fine about all of the above. My wife has been horrified by Charles Barkley using the K word, the kill word about me. She has lost lots and lots of sleep. Her name is Ernestine. She's been haunted and tormented and ultimately extremely angry over all of the above, as I told you last week. And the amazing thing that happened was that there was some fallout through the last couple of days after the couple of days right after we posted, I guess, on Thursday morning, last week's episode 9 podcast about Barkley. But it wasn't until this past Sunday night that Ryan Glass-Steagall of the New York Post wrote a big piece, a long piece, just about Ernestine's reaction to Charles. And it caught internet fire. And before I knew it, everybody had written about Ernestine versus Charles, talking about Yahoo, Huffington Post, on and on and on. And I was astounded by the second wave of reaction, which was much stronger than the first wave, featuring Ernestine versus Charles. I'll read you some of the New York Post story by Ryan Glass-Steagall. Quoting me from last week's podcast, my wife Ernestine has believed for 15 years that Charles Barkley is nothing but a sick individual. To her, he is just pure evil, that he is depraved, that he is a scumbag. And she fears that one day Charles will somehow inspire some other nut to end my life. And this haunts her, this hurts her, because she believes that in the end, Charles Barkley would have my blood on his hands. And I concluded in last week's podcast, if this was Charles' goal from the start, then I congratulate him because he has hurt my wife deeply. This you have to know about my wife, Ernestine. She is one of a kind. She is a flat-out firecracker. Native New Yorker, born and raised. She will take nothing off nobody, including me, but she will defend me to the death with all of her heart and all of her soul and all of her might. She's gotten so angry about Charles Barkley. Remember, this is going back over 15 years worth of relentless, consistent K-word attacks on me, on other TV shows, and also including Charles's Inside the NBA. She's gotten so angry that she says, I'll fight him. I'll fight him for it. You can't fight him. She's about a third of Charles. She's strong. She's in great shape. She's about a third. Well, I'll figure out a way. I'll fight him. She's serious. I'll kick him. I'll do something. No, you won't. You won't. No, just calm down. She gets so frustrated because she's an impulsive, compulsive doer. She wants to fix it. As she says, she's like the mother to the world. And she's kind of a mother to me. And she can be a mother when she loses her temper. And she's lost it so many times at Charles without having an outlet to express it, to fix it, to do it, to defeat it. And it has driven her crazy until now. Craziest thing happened. After that Sunday/Monday onslaught of reaction that hit the fan, featuring her, I at first feared that she'd say, oh no, here we go again. Some nut will take this cue from Barkley and ... No, I didn't get that reaction at all. I got this reaction. My wife, Ernestine, loved this. As she watched it take hold and then take off, she finally got a measure of satisfaction that her side of this was finally actually hitting the national news cycle. And she began to get calls from, we're here in LA, from LA to New York. She has so many friends in New York. Everybody was intrigued. Everybody was interested. How do you feel? What are you doing? How does this make you feel? And she came to me yesterday and she said, you know, I think finally that he'll at least have to apologize for this. And I just shook my head and I said, no, he won't. Trust me, he won't have to apologize. Well, Turner's going to make him apologize. She's very media savvy. Turner's got to make him apologize because he looks so bad over all this. No, Turner won't make Charles Barkley, can't make Charles Barkley do anything. Certainly apologize to me. And she said, yeah, but doesn't he look so bad? He doesn't care. Trust me, I told her, don't count on this. Don't bet on this because you will lose. And I told her, you better be prepared. This could just escalate all of the above as it has before when, as I said in last week's podcast, I went to an ESPN executive to go to a Turner executive just for her to say, hey, Charles, rip and slash all you want. I don't mind the criticism. I say bring it on. I just don't like the K word for her sake. That's all. When our moms were alive, my mom, her mom, they didn't like it either. They're now no longer with us. Now it's just Ernestine. And yet, in the end, she feels some measure of satisfaction that I don't feel, because I challenged Charles last week to join me right here on this podcast. And let's go back and forth. We can take an hour, we can take 2 hours. You can have as much time as you want. Let's get to the bottom of why you want to kill me. And I noticed that a number of the websites that wrote about Ernestine versus Charles reached out to Charles for a response, got no response. I told you last week we would reach out, and on Monday, our bookers here at FS1 did reach out to Charles' people. No response as of this moment. Do I anticipate one? I don't. Would I love it? Yes, I would. I am not afraid of Charles Barkley, and I sure hope he's not afraid of me. But my offer still stands, Charles. I'm right here. You name the place, you name the time. I'll be there. I'm waiting. But for me, if this is the end of all of this madness and this mess that Ernestine and I have suffered through for 15 years, at least there's this one silver lining, that my wife feels like she actually was able to do something about it through me and through this Skip Bayless Show that I'm able to do now. I love you, Ernestine, with all my heart and soul and might. Let's take a question from the floor, shall we? Let's go to Jack from Gainesville, Florida, who asks, what is more difficult, running a marathon or watching the marathon that is an entire Cowboy season? Ugh. That is a good question. That's a tough question. Okay, just for the record, I ran 9 marathons. It's, if you don't know, 26.2 miles per marathon. I stopped running marathons because they just got too damn hard. Too hard on my body and too hard on my psyche, because I didn't run marathons just to finish. I ran them to run as fast as I could run them. I ran them to compete. I ran them to try to win my age group, time after time after time. 5 times out of 9, I ran under 3 hours. I'm pretty proud of that. It's not great, but it's pretty good. I was actually too big to run marathons. I'm 5'11"-ish. You know, I lost so much weight to run those marathons. I weigh about 165, 68-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Ran the marathons at under 150. I'd be 148, 149, because you have to. It's just physics. You're carrying that much weight for 26.2 miles as fast as you can carry it. You need less and less weight. But one time, and only one time, did one marathon go perfectly. They say that you have one great marathon inside your body, and once you use it up, you use it up. And I had one. It went even better than I could have anticipated. This was in Houston, of all places. A marathon called the Woodlands, which is a neighborhood in Houston. And we went 2 full loops around the Woodlands neighborhood, finished on the high school track. Flat course, it was 55 degrees that day, and it was rainy. It was actually drizzly, sort of rainy the whole time. Trust me, it's perfect conditions to run as fast as I could run. And for some reason I can't explain, I just felt perfect that day. That was 1 time and 9 tries. It worked. So you put in maybe 6 months of training. There were weeks I was running 100-mile weeks, culminating with a 20-miler on a Sunday. That week of, all the carbohydrate, they call it carbo unloading and then loading, it just wears you out psychologically, and you fight through sore knees and swollen Achilles tendons, and And then it all depends on this one little 3-hour window. I don't know, your biorhythms, just how you felt when you woke up that morning. Depends on the weather, depends on your injuries, everything. All your eggs in that one little 3-hour basket. And I just got sick and tired of it, and I'm not going to do it anymore. Done with marathons, but I can't quit my Cowboys. I try and I fail. Every year I say, okay, that's enough. I'm done with them. But I can't be. Trust me on this. This past Cowboy season beat me up way worse than any of my marathons ever did. And they beat the unholy hell out of me. Every time I ran one, the recovery is like a month of soreness. And what it did, I've been through every injury you can imagine. Back injuries, knee surgeries, Achilles problems, plantar fasciitis, calf pulls, hamstring pulls. I don't know. I can't. It's just what's going to happen if you go pound the pavement for 26.2 miles and you build up to it by running 100-mile weeks. It's not right. You're going to lose ultimately, and I did. And yet I thought this past season was it. Seriously, I have never, ever in my life been more sure about a Dallas Cowboys season than I got to be this past season. Dak was back. The defense was reborn. It wound up leading the league in takeaways. 11 from heaven fell into our laps. I'm talking about Micah Parsons out of Penn State. Just fell out of our laps. We wanted Patrick Surtain. Maybe we wanted J.C. Horn. We wanted a cornerback. And we wound up with a guy who competed all year, a kid who competed as a rookie for Defensive Player of the Year, challenging his teammate, Trevon Diggs, who for maybe half a year was in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. What more could I ask for? My offense led the league in points and yards. And we led the league in takeaways on defense. It's magic. It's Super Bowl, here we come. I got to the point on Undisputed that I said, my Cowboys are unjinxable this year. And I believe in jinxes. But I finally said, nothing can stop this. No sinister force, no dark side can stop my Cowboys this time, this year. They're just too good. We got this. No, we don't. Here came Denver. It's Shannon Sharp's team. I compete with all my heart, soul, and might against Shannon Sharp every day. He went into the Hall of Fame as a Denver freaking Bronco. And the Broncos came to Jerry World and stomped all over us just when I thought we were Super Bowl bound. It was 30-0 going to the fourth quarter. What? I should have seen it. I should have just said I'm out at that point. I should have come in the next day and said I'm out on the Dallas Cowboys, but I can't quit the Cowboys. I just can't. I can't save myself. I can't stop myself. I can't reach down into my soul and say, wake up, wise up, stop it. I couldn't stop. They went to Kansas City, big showdown against the Chiefs. We had the ball 12 times at Kansas City. We scored 3 field goals. I should have quit, and I couldn't quit. Thanksgiving. I still haven't recovered just from Thanksgiving. The Raiders, they made the playoffs. They're decent. They're fair. They're above average. We stunk the whole day. We somehow got the game to overtime and won the coin toss and lost the game. That's impossible. That doesn't happen in the National Football League, but it did to my Cowboys. And then Arizona happened at home. And then San Francisco in a playoff game happened at Jerry World. The game was effectively over in the first quarter. My team set a franchise playoff record for penalties in one game. How could I have trusted Mike McCarthy? Please drop the mic, McCarthy. I don't know, but I did. And I live to regret it. My team finished the last 11 games 6-5. I was devastated. I was blindsided. In the end, I was just cold cocked. I was lying effectively, figuratively on the floor. I still haven't recovered because I'm not sure I ever will. And I swore him off. I swore at him a lot, but I swore him off. And I said, okay, that's it. Never, ever again. And then the other day, 2 little cowboy bombshells dropped that fooled me again, out of the blue. Wait, DeMarcus Lawrence, I thought he was gone. No, he re-signs at a really team-friendly deal. 3 years, $30 million. He's making almost $20 million. Now he's going to make only $10 million for 3 years. He stayed. Really? And then, kaboom. Randy Gregory re-signs with my Dallas Cowboys. All of a sudden, this happened live on Undisputed. I'm like, I don't have time to think. I got to react on live national TV. Happy days are here again. We are back in business. Shannon Sharpe laughed at me, but I couldn't help myself. And I was truly excited. I thought, now we got a shot. D-Law, Randy Gregory, and 11 from heaven, we got a shot. Kept Dan Quinn as the coordinator, we got a real shot. I get in the car, I have to call my business manager, who is in, of all places, Dallas, Texas. And we're going back and forth about business we got to tend to. And all of a sudden he says, wait a second, I just got an alert on my phone. Hold on. He says, Randy Gregory just signed with Denver. I said, no, he signed with the Cowboys. No, he says, it says he opted out of the Cowboy deal. He's signed with the Broncos. The Broncos? You're kidding. And I'm on the floor again. And I'm blindsided. And I'm cold-cocked. And I'm devastated. Shannon Sharpe got me again. You're kidding. He of all the places he had to go, he went to Denver? So I quit the marathon, but then I ran a marathon this year at the Cowboys, and there's no finish line. It's like a bad dream where you think you see the finish line in sight, and then it keeps moving, and it keeps moving, and it keeps moving, and I still can't find the finish line, and I still can't quit my Dallas Cowboys. Next topic. You might remember that soon after Tom Brady, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr., announced his retirement, in a shock to me, some 40-odd days ago now, I sat right here in this seat, and I spilled my guts for you. I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't come to grips. I couldn't wrap any arm around it because it made no sense. I kept asking, why? Why now, Tom? Made no sense. Should have won MVP. As far as I know, perfectly healthy. Yeah, I know, wife and kids, I got it. But that's not Brady's MO. He gives them all he has to give, but they know he's not going to be happy not playing football. There's no reason for him to stop now because he's playing as well as he ever has as he approaches age 45. Age, to me, is just a number. I told you, I personalize this. I identify. I don't want to stop doing this. I don't want to retire. I have a lot of friends who are retired. I got no use for retirement. Well, I'd go crazy if I retired. I live for this. I can still do this. It's not obviously playing quarterback in the National Football League, but Tom at 45 can definitely do this at the highest level. And I finally concluded on that edition of this show that he just can't be retired. It's impossible. I will not accept it. And my instincts were correct. So as Shannon always says, he started dropping the little breadcrumbs, but the one that hit me right between the eyes, just to share some backstory with you, was last Friday when an ex-star quarterback, somebody you probably know of pretty well, very well, communicated to me that Tom had called him about 2 days after the playoff loss at home, of course, to the eventual champion Rams. Called him to ask about, hey, what would you think if I went with Sean Payton to the Dolphins? When I heard this, I was like, what? Yeah, 2 days after he lost, he was seriously thinking about a proposal from Sean Payton to go as a package deal to the Dolphins. And I do remember that Tom is building a house in Miami, on a little island off the shore of Miami. Aha. Okay. And all I know for sure is that I was told that Tom was completely burned out on Bruce Arians, obviously the Tampa coach, just couldn't take him anymore. And that the point was, he still hadn't announced the retirement just yet, but that he really wasn't retiring from football. He just was going to retire from Tampa. Couldn't take it anymore with the one time called the Succaneers, because he thought maybe they'd turn more back into Succaneers this coming season. 26 free agents, a lot of age and attrition going on. Shaq Barrett, JPP, not the same anymore. He'd had enough of Tampa, or as I called it, Tampa Bay. And when I heard this last Friday, I thought, okay, now it all crystallizes. Now it comes clear. He is going to play again. I just don't know where. And obviously, I'd speculated on Undisputed from the start that the obvious goal for a Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. was to go home. Finish the fairy tale back in the Bay Area. Grew up in San Mateo, in sort of the shadow right down the 101 freeway from Candlestick Park, where Joe Montana was his idol and hero. Go finish with the 49ers. Well, he wanted to go there 2 years ago, and the Shanahans, plural, said no. Mike is the advisor, Shannon Sharp's coach with the Broncos. They won 2 Super Bowls together. Mike is the advisor to Kyle, the head coach of the 49ers. They said no to the GOAT 2 years ago. Lately, lots of stories have indicated that Brady at least kicked those tires again, at least communicated to the Shanahans, I'm here if you want me. Now, the problem is that he still has 1 year left on his deal at Tampa. But everybody told me, including that star quarterback I heard from, ex-star quarterback, that Tom was convinced that Tampa would do him a solid because he did them a big solid. He chose them when they were 7-9, and in a pandemic year, he went to the Succaneers and won it all. Wow. For the first time since 2002, they won the Super Bowl. He put Tampa back on the map. Wouldn't they surely say, yeah, we'll let you out of the second year. We did that for cap purposes anyway. It's not that big a deal. Just go on. You have our blessing. But I've told you before, I have another source, high placed, within the Tampa organization. And that source was telling me all along, we are not inclined to let him out. You know, I thought, well, maybe there'd be some nominal draft pick where maybe the 49ers could say, hey, we'll give you a 6th rounder to let him out, because what was Brady once upon a time? A 6th round pick. Wouldn't that tie a nice little bow on all this? Come on, Tampa, just let him finish in San Francisco. Would be in the NFC, would be a threat. I got that. Tampa not inclined to do that. Still reports, Scott Pioli, the former GM in New England and Kansas City, has been saying that from what he hears, Tom's still not real happy with Bruce Arians. And I believe that. But as I told you on an earlier podcast, my source within the Buccaneers was the first to tell me that he had retired. I told you the story Ernestine and I were walking our little Maltese Hazel in our gated community. We're walking in front of the house of Bob Newhart, famous comedian. Google him. You probably don't know him. Google him. Look him up. We're walking right in front of Bob Newhart's house, and I looked down at my phone, and I got a text. He's gone. He's gone? Felt like a death in the family. Ernestine said, what's wrong? I said, Brady's gone. He's retired. Are you sure? Yeah. From this source, I'm positive. Full circle to Sunday evening. I'm about to be involved in March Madness, bracket racket. I look down at my phone and I see a text from my source inside the Buccaneers. And guess what it said? Capital L, capital F, capital G, LFG. Well, if you know Thomas Edward Patrick Brady like I do, you know that stands for let's effing go. And I interpreted those three letters to mean Tom Brady is back and he is going to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I fell off my chair again because about 10 minutes later, another bombshell drops from Brady himself. He's back with the Buccaneers. So in the end, the Buccaneers won. They got Tom Brady really on the cheap next year. It's like chicken feed deal. They got the GOAT. But more important, they got the GOAT on another mission. And here's the great irony about this. Tom Brady is going to be possessed and obsessed with winning next year's MVP / Super Bowl, winning it all in every way, shape, and form, because his childhood team, the team he grew up living for and loving in the Bay Area, spurned him again for a second straight time, 2 years ago and now. The 49ers, run by the Shanahans, said no to the GOAT. Trust me on this. He will be furious. He will go psycho Tom over this. And he was finally forced to say, okay, I'm going to show you, Mike Shanahan, and you, Kyle Shanahan, just how wrong you are. It's the 6th rounder coming out again. I'm going to show you. I'm going to make you eat this. And I can't wait to watch him, because in the end, all I care about is it will be yet again an even more unprecedented honor and privilege to watch the GOAT, still in his prime, playing at his highest level at age 45. And by the way, the GM Jason Light just made a couple of sweet little deals. Russell Gage can play. He'll slip right in as their third receiver. He is very productive, very coachable, big heart, great kid, sweet move. And then Tom knows Shaq Mason from his days in New England. Belichick did Brady a solid. He gave the Bucs Shaq Mason for a 5th-round pick. Shaq Mason was graded last year by Pro Football Focus the 4th best guard in football out of 90. Really? They got him for a 5th rounder, and they needed a guard. They've lost a couple. I think Tom Brady's back in business. I think he'll be out of his mind inspired because of Shannon Sharp's former head coach, Mike Shanahan. Trust me on this. He pulls the strings in San Francisco. He's the chief advisor to Kyle. So Shannon Sharp's old coach has re-inspired Tom Brady to make a fool out of Shannon Sharp Monday after Monday after Monday on Undisputed. I could not write this any better than Tom is writing his own fairy tale ending to this. Thank you. Thank you, Mike Shanahan. Thank you, Shannon Sharp, and good luck next year. It's take another of your questions. Kyle from Big Bear Lake, California asks, will we remember Tom Brady's unretirement like we remember Brett Favre's, Michael Jordan's? This question rubs me the wrong way because it smacks of a little Brady hate, and there's a bunch of that out there, or maybe at least a little Brady skepticism, or maybe a little Brady fatigue, as in, I'm so sick and tired of Tom Brady, please go away and leave me alone. The answer, Kyle, to your question is no, 1,000 times no. Tom Brady next year will be in the thick of the MVP race. I believe he'll win it. He came so close this year. I think he should have won. Again, Pro Football Focus graded him better than Aaron Rodgers, but he didn't. So he'll say, watch this. I'll show you. And remember what happened to Brett Favre. The 2009 season ended in that NFC Championship game at New Orleans, Minnesota at New Orleans. Brett Favre was pretty great in that game, went overtime. He did throw a pick, but remember what happened after that game? Bountygate happened. Brett Favre got annihilated in that game. I remember Peter King reported Brett Favre couldn't even get up off the training table to walk to the bus. He was so beat up after that game. That game effectively ended Brett Favre's career. And because of what was going on, a bounty on Brett Favre in the New Orleans locker room, Sean Payton suspended for an entire year. We could go on and on. So many suspensions. Commissioner dropped the hammer on New Orleans for what they did to Brett Favre. So, yeah, he tries one more time around in Minnesota, and it was horrendous. He was a shell of himself because he was beat all to hell. Played 13 games. Team went 5-8 in those 13. He threw 11 touchdowns, lowest of his career, to 19 interceptions. The team finished 6-10, obviously missed the playoffs. Favre ended December 20th was his final game. He lost at home to division rival Chicago, featuring my guy Jay Cutler from Vanderbilt University. The score was 40-14, but Brett only lasted barely more than a quarter. Concussion, gone for the rest of the game, gone for the rest of his career. That has nothing to do with Brady now. As far as I know, perfectly healthy, playing at a supremely high level, no bounty gate, was the Rams game and victory at Tampa. And then my man, Michael Jordan. You won't find a bigger Jordan fan. But remember, he sat out for 3 years. He retired for 3 full years on principle because the two Jerrys in Chicago, Reinsdorf and Krause, ran off his coach, Phil Jackson. He said, okay, if he's out, I am out. And man of his word, he stayed out for 3 years. Then he came back for 2 ceremonial years at age 39 and then age 40 in Washington. By then, smoking a lot of cigars, having a couple of drinks here and there, letting his weight go a little bit, shell of himself. First year he averaged 23-6, not bad, but the team went 37-45. Second year he averaged 20-6, which was his last year. Outscored that year by Jerry Stackhouse, now my coach at Vanderbilt University, 37-45. Missed playoffs both years. Shell of self. Ceremonial player at best. Has nothing to do with what you're about to witness from Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Next topic. I have always had a love-hate relationship with March Madness. Maybe it's a love-laugh relationship because I watch it like crazy. I watch it as much as anybody watches it, but I accept it and have always accepted it for exactly what it is. It is sensationally flawed. It is wildly entertaining, often for all the wrong reasons. It's nothing but the wildest roller coaster ride you've ever been on. And yet, you have to understand, I have been obsessed with this tournament my whole life at different stages for very different reasons. I, I even watched, I'm going to date myself, but on TV, because it was actually on TV, black and white, I watched the 1957 National Championship game, went 3 overtimes because it featured this kid at Kansas named Wilt Chamberlain versus North Carolina. And I was just in awe of it. Low scoring, I think it was 54-53. Carolina beat Wilt in the championship game. But that hooked me on college basketball because there really wasn't much pro basketball at that point. And I was really into this tournament in 1966. Again, I'm dating myself, but I was in 8th grade. I was a huge fan of a team you won't know anything about unless you're from Oklahoma City, where I grew up, called the Oklahoma City University Chiefs. If you knew college basketball in 1966, you know they were top 10 in the country all year long, often top 5. They averaged almost 100 points a game because their great but crazy head coach named Abe Lemons just told them, shoot, whoever dribbles it past half court, just pull up and shoot it. That's what they did every day. It was the most entertaining basketball I've ever seen on any level. And as an 8th grade basketball player, I got 3 of my teammates to go with me on opening night. We had to convince the ticket taker to do something that became what you would call season tickets. We said, would you sell us like the whole year's worth? They were cheap. They were, I don't know how much they were, but they were like under $1 because they just didn't draw very well. They played in a little field house called Frederickson on campus, Frederickson Fieldhouse. It was something. And they sold us 4 tickets, like 50-yard line front row, and we had to ask our parents to after the game we had to go back to the ticket buyer. She waited after the game so we could borrow the money from our parents to pay for the whole year. But we went to every game, and we had the best seat in the house. Well, OCU played in the NCAA tournament. It wasn't called March Madness yet, but in the first round, there were only, guess how many teams there were at that point? 22 teams. There's no madness. But in the first round, which was actually called, weirdly, the quarterfinals, my Chiefs drew Texas Western. Texas Western destroyed my Oklahoma City University Chiefs because Texas Western was about to go on and beat Kentucky in the national finals and become the first college basketball team to start 5 black players and win it all. Way to go, Texas Western, except against OCU. But I was there as a young columnist. I was there in 1979, Salt Lake City. Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird. I couldn't quite grasp what was going on, but it was actually the birth of what would become March Madness, but was the rebirth of the NBA, which was dying on the vine at that point. That night was so special because you want to talk about magnitude, Magic versus Bird. It felt bigger than any NBA game I'd ever covered. And it launched the madness. We've never had a Magic versus Bird since then. I guess you could call Jordan versus Ewing in the national final in '82. I was there in New Orleans. But, I don't know, Ewing was good, but he wasn't great. It wasn't like Jordan versus Jordan, Magic versus Bird. So it was a one-off, but it launched March Madness. So here we went. And the more I tried to figure out the madness, the more maddening it got. Because here's the truth about March Madness. If you're going to take a bunch of kids and you're going to send them to first-round games in all kinds of weird places. I covered games in Pullman, Washington, first-round games, and this time you got Buffalo as a site, you got Greenville, South Carolina as a site. If you're going to put these kids in weird gyms with weird shooting backgrounds, with weird groups of referees, and you're going to tell them, oh, you only get 5 fouls, and the three-point line's, it's like not much more than a free throw. It's way short of the NBA line. If you're going to say you can shoot threes like they're free throws, And the games are going to come and go like that because it's just two 20-minute halves. It almost feels like a running clock to me. They go so fast. Hour and a half, it feels like done. If you're going to do that, guess what you're going to have? Upset City, baby. That's what you're going to have. It's madness. 12s are going to beat 5s. It's just going to happen because it's going to be completely off the chart, off the chain, unpredictable. The whole idea of the tournament is pure madness. It couldn't be more aptly named. Buzzer beaters, they're going to fall from heaven like diamonds for the networks and their ratings. Why? Because kids now grow up watching March Madness, watching those before them make buzzer beaters like they're layups. Everybody makes buzzer beaters, and it's the classic self-fulfilling prophecy where you grow up as a player and you watch everybody, they're just making them right and left and right and left. Thursday and Friday, it's buzzer beater, buzzer beater. Well, kids grow up thinking, I'm just supposed to make a buzzer beater. And they find themselves in that situation and they will the ball in because they think it's supposed to go in. It always does because it always has. This has gone on for years of buzzer beaters. And just watch. You'll be watching. I'll be watching. It will happen. And what is happening as we speak? People everywhere are filling out brackets. Office pools. Dive into the pool. The water's warm. But wait a second. You know and I know who's going to win your office pool. It will be somebody who didn't watch a single minute of college basketball this year. Book it, bet on it. Somebody who knows nothing about college basketball will win your office pool. Why? Because they pick colors, or they pick mascots, or they pick who knows why. Maybe they pick Norfolk State or Montana State or Longwood. Maybe they pick Longwood because their mother's cousin's brother's sister's wife's aunt went to Longwood. There'll be some connection where they say, I know Longwood, I'm going to pick Longwood, and Longwood will somehow win with a buzzer beater in Buffalo. I don't know where Longwood is, but the point is, it's supremely madness to the point that the more you know, the worse you will do with your college basketball picks, with your March Madness. It will eat you alive if you actually study it or watch it or know college basketball. You know this, and I know this. So will I be? Yeah, I'll be watching. It's the OMG factor. I'll have friends call me. Oh my God, did you just see that? I saw it. Do you believe that? Yes, I do, because that's what they do every year. I love it, but I'm not surprised by it. I'm definitely not shocked by it. It's what March Madness is. And then we will all experience what I call the inverted pyramid of interest, because the interest is the highest on Thursday and Friday, opening rounds, because everybody's still alive in their bracket. And then most people's bracket will get busted. Opening weekend, it just happens. And then all the non-fans will start to drop out of watching the tournament because they don't care. They didn't really care in the beginning. They just cared about winning the office pool. If they're out, they're out. Top seeds will inevitably start to rise like cream to the top. And suddenly you'll have more hardcore fans, unless it's somebody in your office who's winning the pool, and then they'll keep watching without any knowledge of what's actually happening. So to me, in the end, it's how I view New Year's Eve. It's amateur night. If you're going to party, don't go party on New Year's Eve because it's amateur night. And this is beautifully amateur-ish. Have you ever flipped back and forth? I have, between a March Madness game and an NBA game. It's shocking to your eyes. I'm an NBA fan. I'm hardcore. Again, I watch March Madness like crazy. My wife, Ernestine, has become a big NBA fan, and a shock to me because she always says, I can see them. They don't have helmets on. I can see their face. I can see their physique. He's got a nice body. He doesn't have a nice body. She relates the backstories. There are only 5 on the court at once. She can sort of get to know them. Oh, I know him. I know him. Yeah, okay, I got it. So she'll walk by when I'm watching a college game and she'll say, is this real basketball? No, it's not. It's college. Okay. That's her take from a distance. She can't stand college basketball. She doesn't know anything. She thinks it's just amateur. Well, it is. And then we get to the ultimate deception, the feeder system for the NBA that is college basketball. These kids are forced to go for 1 year. These supremely gifted NBA-bound kids have to go for 1 year. Do they go to class? Some probably do. I'll bet a lot of them don't even go to one class. It's a sham of a system. And does the NBA not benefit? Is it not saved from itself? Think of the crucible it gets to watch now. You get to put these kids on big national stages with huge national TV audiences. How do they respond to the pressure? It can be misleading, but it can also be enlightening. You can identify clutch genes in March Madness because it's all about clutches, because it seems like every game goes to the wire. What a beautiful feeder system. What unconstitutional hypocrisy is March Madness in the end, and nobody cares, and I don't either. I got it. It's madness. Let it begin. Here we go. OMG, do you believe? Yes, I believe. I'm picking the number one seed. I'm going with the Zags. I love them. But you watch. They'll probably zig when they should have zagged, and they'll get upset by Longwood or somebody. You know it, and I know it, because it is madness. Let's go back to your questions. Let's try one from Calvin from South Bend, Indiana. I've been there many times. Not one of my favorite places, unless Notre Dame's playing football on Saturday. Calvin asks, how many games in LeBron's 19-year career have you not watched or missed? How about none? None. It's possible in his rookie year I missed one or two, but I don't think so. I didn't deep dive on this, but Twitter, I think I joined Twitter in 2007, I believe. I'm pretty sure you could go back, and every time LeBron played, I tweeted, because he is simply the most interesting man in the history of sports. He lives in some bizarre force field out of which springs a story a night, a backstory a night. Something always happens. We have a running joke, producers on Undisputed. If we feel like we don't have much to talk about tomorrow, we always say, but LeBron's playing tonight, so something will happen. And we're not talking about the basketball game. It's always sidebar. It's always backstory. It's always between the lines. It's always something will happen that will be controversial or wildly unpredictable, featuring LeBron. There'll be a controversy during the game, or he'll say something after the game where you say, what? What's that about? He'll throw some fit, some tantrum. I don't know. It's always something with LeBron, and it's always wildly entertaining. It's better than March Madness. LeBron is October Madness, November, December Madness, January Madness. He's madness all the way into June. He's always June Madness, except maybe for this year if they miss the playoffs. But watch, something will happen. It's always something. He's going to score 50, or he's going to want Vogel fired after the game, and he's going to drop hints about that. Something will happen every LeBron game. So I don't miss them because I can't miss them, and I don't want to miss them because no player has ever entertained me on a more consistent basis than LeBron. But that's during and after games. I always said about Michael Jordan, got to cover him that one great year, that Last Dance year in Chicago, 1998, Last Dance. Every game with Michael I ever covered, he would do one thing where I would sit back and say, I don't think I've ever seen that before. But that was pure basketball. That was GOAT basketball. LeBron is the GOAT of words spoken or written about him. No one's ever had more words spoken or written about him. No player in any sport, individual sport, team sport. LeBron is the GOAT of words spoken about because he's just so fascinating. The other night, he opts not to play because of a sore knee in San Antonio, but he's there with the team, and weirdly, he decides to sit at the end of the bench, and he pulls up his hood and wears sunglasses as if he's going, quote unquote, incognito. Well, you know, and I know, you might as well have put a giant sign over him with flashing red lights and a big red arrow that said, here's LeBron James. Because the more he tries to go incognito, the more attention he's going to get. That's just who he is. He was made for, and now fueled by, social media. It's beautiful. It's almost like social media created him, and that he thrives on it and gets larger and larger than life because of it. His game is highly debatable. I'm being nice. He's a below average three-point shooter. He's a way below average free throw shooter. Since the All-Star break, in the 9 games since the break, he's leading the league in turnovers. But he can score 50 points at age 37 like clockwork. Snap your fingers, he'll go get you 56. He can still play bully ball with the best of them. He can still get crazy hot from 3 and just shoot 35% and be ranked in the lower third of the league. It's just LeBron James. I've never been more fascinated by a player than LeBron, and I would like to publicly thank him for giving all of us in the media so much content. I live for LeBron games, and no, I do not miss them. Let's take one more question, shall we? From you. Maurice from Long Island. How come you never wear a tie on air? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that, Maurice. This was just before we were scheduled to launch on a show called Cold Pizza on ESPN2. It did start on September 6th of 2004 in New York City. Mark Shapiro, who hired me to come and try to help save that show, Mark Shapiro said, you know what? No tie. It's casual. It's morning television. In those days, it started at 7 a.m. Eastern and went until 9 Eastern. Let's stay informal, said the great Mark Shapiro to me. Okay. I was going to add a debate component. I'd been on lots of different ESPN shows, sports reporters, a show called Prime Monday ahead of Monday Night Football when it used to be on ABC. And in my many, many appearances on ESPN and other MSNBCs and whatever, I always wore a tie because everybody wears a tie on TV. But Mark Shapiro said no tie. And I laughed and said, yeah, well, you know what they say in sports. A tie is like kissing your sister. I don't want to kiss my sister, so I won't wear a tie. And if I'm going to debate on TV, you know me, I'm an insane competitor, and I'm going to be competing against Woody Page. I kind of like the idea of no ties because I don't want a tie. I want to win. So here we went, me versus Woody. Guess what? Cold pizza ratings in the toilet started to rise up out of the toilet. We started to rate. The show morphed into First Take. It morphed all the way up to Bristol, Connecticut, out of New York City. and I continued not to wear a tie. And I came to loathe the idea of wearing a tie anywhere. And the show continued to morph around the debate concept, became Embrace Debate as I moved from Bristol, Connecticut to Los Angeles, California to do Undisputed on FS1. And we decided right away, nah, no ties. Shannon can wear a tie. I'm not going to wear a tie. Since I have been here in LA at FS1, I can think of 2 times I actually wore a tie off air. One was my mother's funeral. Did that out of respect to her. Felt pretty awkward about it. Couldn't remember how to tie a tie. Had to get a friend of mine that morning to tie it for me. But I wore it awkwardly. And then our first year here on Undisputed, we took the show to New York City, and Shannon and I had to go to an event, had to attend an event on the Thursday night before Friday's show. And we were to meet in the lobby, and as the elevator door opened, I walk out to see Shannon waiting for me. I'm wearing a tie because it's big, it's almost black tie, but it's not quite, but it's very formal. And I took a tie. And Ernestine went with me, and she tied it for me, and I got a tie on. And I walk out of the elevator doors, and Shannon looks up, and he says, "You're wearing a tie?" He didn't have one on. And I said, "Ah, oh, thank God." I said, "I'm going to rip this thing off," and I start to rip. He says, No. He said, "I feel completely out of place without a tie on. I was just doing this for you so you wouldn't feel uncomfortable." And I said, "So what?" And he says, "So I'm going back up to my room to put a tie on." And he did. And we went to the event wearing ties. And thankfully, that was it for me. And I hope I never wear a tie again as long as I live, because I know for sure Shannon Sharpe will never even come close to tying me on Undisputed. That is it for episode 10. I want to thank you for listening, and if you're watching, also that. I want to thank Jonathan Berger and his All-Pro team for making this show go. I want to thank my man Tyler Korn for producing. And I ask you to remember, Undisputed, weekdays, 9:30 to noon Eastern Time. The Skip Bayless Show, every week.